Hi everyone! Today I wanted to share with you how I make my really simple and inexpensive bead mat. It's nice to have it in a tray. It catches any of the beads that try to roll away, and with this great Velux mat, it's really simple to pick the beads up, and if you need to park your needle, you can just kind of stab it into the mat. So this is kind of the end result, so I'm going to walk you through today how we make this. I like making a few of them because then they stack nicely on top of each other, and they kind of keep your work sealed. So even after you've added the foam or the bead mat to it, they'll still stack nicely. So let's talk about how we do this. I get these amazing activity trays from the Dollar Tree, and they're usually in like the school section, sometimes the craft section. I usually find them on the bottom shelf, and I get as many as I feel like I need to at the moment. So usually I end up getting like 3 or 4, or whatever they have. So check your Dollar Tree. If you can't find a tray like this, look for dishes that have not too deep side lip to it. If they're too rounded or they're too deep, it's hard to get your hand in to pick up the beads. So this I think is less than an inch tall. And yeah, so the one possibly negative to these trays are they have these kind of built-in compartments. And for me, I don't usually work with just 4 beads styles, so having them quartered out like this isn't a huge help, to be honest. But I can fill these a little bit with some of the extra material, and that makes it a little bit more smooth. Or honestly, this one wasn't filled. There is a little bit of a lip, you can kind of see it there, but it doesn't make too much of a difference. You can still work on top of it with no problem. So anyway, I'm going to skip the filling for right now, but I'll talk you through it later. But for now, let's get started. So step 1 to this whole process, I usually take off the Easy Peel label. It is usually easy peel until I have to do it on camera. Noise warning. All right, so I've got a nice clean tray, brand new, nothing much going on here. There's a little bit of dust. It's not going to make a difference. In addition to these activity trays, you're going to need a hot glue gun and glue sticks to go along with it. I had a outdoor pumpkin project with this, so sorry about the grass on top of that. Glue sticks to go along with it. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and then the bead mats that I love the most are these. They're Jewelry Tool bead mats by Gadgets and Gizmos. They are only $2.99 for a 3-pack, and these are large, and I got these at Hobby Lobby. I do believe that these are made out of Velux material. I've found some bead mats online that I'm not a huge fan of. The material is very directional, and my beads just fly everywhere with it. Michael's has some bead mats, but they're quite a bit smaller. Let's see if I have any. So the ones that I found at Michael's are a little more square and quite a bit smaller. They look like this. So when I try to set it in, there's a gap. It's possible to trim it and glue another piece, but then you're dealing with like a seam. So this is not my preferred size. I like the Hobby Lobby ones for price and for size. So I use 1 sheet per tray. You'll have leftovers that you can use to fill the quads if you wanted, or use them to fill other containers or whatnot, but 1 mat per tray, and let's get started. So let's pull out one of these mats. I think for this pink, I'm going to do the white or the cream color. Gosh, I love these bead mats. Even if you're not gluing them into a Dollar Tree tray or any other tray, these are my favorite things to work on. I just lay them down and I lay my beads on top and go. So the great thing about the size is if I set it in the tray, it goes just up a little on the edges. It's just a little wider than the base. So what I have found that I enjoy doing is actually trimming it a little bit bigger than the base so that when I hot glue it, it comes up on the sides. That way there isn't going to be any sort of a weird seam where your beads will get stuck. No exposed hot glue if you do it right. It's not too difficult, but I find that's how I like to work with these. And it's a little bit stretchy, so you can make it go up a little taller. So what I first do is I kind of measure it really roughly. So if it goes to about there and there, gosh, I'm terrible at measurements. Let me get a tape measure here. All right, so we are looking at, it folds up about maybe 1/4 of an inch around the sides. So if I did this to the base here and added on 1/2 inch from sort of the base, basically it's if I line it up here, where it hits the top over here is where I'm going to cut it. Really, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't have to be precise. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go with confidence. Trim that off. There's your extra. We'll come back to that in just a moment. And it's a little bit rough. I can fix that before I put it in. And then I like to kind of just, again, squish it in place, see if I like how it fits, if there's too much fabric, which I think I did a little bit big. So let me go ahead and clean that off one more time. There's a little bit of pattern in the material that kind of gives you a guideline, but I don't know if it's square, so we're gonna eyeball it and stretch it and hope for the best. All right, so I'm happy with that size. It's just a little bit bigger than the base. The corners, however, of my tray are rounded, so I'm gonna go ahead and eyeball these to make them rounded. Again, not super important. It's just that's gonna be extra material in the corners that you're not gonna love, I think, if you're anything like me. If you have a different tray than what I'm showing here, you'll do the same thing. You're gonna eyeball the base inner size and shape. You can use a pen or a marker if you wanted to draw it, and then maybe flip it over. But yeah, so I have generally roughly eyeballed my shape. I'm going to pull out a couple of sticks of glue, only because I usually, when I do this, I end up using two to three glue sticks. I overdo it a little bit, but better to have more ready to go than not. The last part, the optional part, I'm going to say if you've got the same tray that I do, you can take that extra piece that you cut off here and cut, basically if I lay this flat in here, it almost fills it perfectly. So I just need to get the right size. I usually cut one and then I use that as a template. With the excess that we trimmed from that one sheet, you can get 3 of these filled. So if I do the math, there's 3 pads that will fill 3 full trays, and it will line 2 of the 3 trays. So you'll need a little bit more than what's included in one to fill in the gaps here. So again, I'm not going to do that. I cut it, I cut the roundness, I trace a line of glue around it, and then I just press it flat, focusing mostly on where it comes here to make sure there's not any weird gapping. But again, once you cover it with the top layer, it doesn't matter as much. So, all right, we're going to skip it for today. Keep it simple. And at least one of your bead trays won't have that because there isn't enough material in a pack. All right, so here's how I approach it. I've got my glue stick all nice and ready and drippy on my table. Thank goodness I can peel that off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace around the edge of one of the sides, kind of going just around the corner on either side. And I'm going to put a nice bead generally towards the bottom, but it's kind of in the corner, you'll see. And I'm doing a very generous amount, especially when it comes to there. You don't have to worry about being sloppy, but you'll see here, you can probably tell why I use so much glue when I do this. And then this first piece is probably the most important to make sure it's generally centered. You've got a short period of time to work with this before it all kind of gets locked down. So I press it down and I stretch it into place, and I kind of use my fingers to smush the glue and kind of press it up to the sides and get that corner nice and fixed. And if it's a little off, again, it's pretty forgiving because you can stretch it, but I'm just going to make sure that this side here is nice and secure. It cools so quickly, but it does a pretty good job adhering it. I had to take one out, and when I ripped it, the fabric ripped faster than the glue did. So this is pretty secure for what we're using it for. All right, I'm just feeling it for warmth. Unless the glue is spilling out around the between the fabric and the plastic, it's not hot through the material, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm feeling good about this. I think it's good enough for now. So what I'm going to do is peel this back just a little bit, just to sort of where I can see where the glue started. And now this is the fun part. I'm going to glue one side maybe to about here, and then I'm going to do the other side to about there, and then I'm going to finish it off. That's usually my approach. Sometimes, again, I get bold. I might do this and this to the middle, and then so both sides at once and both sides at once, but it's whatever your preference is. I'm already a little low on glue. So what that means also is I'm pushing so much glue through my hot glue gun that I might get to a point where the glue gun just doesn't want to push out any because it's got to melt it first. So that might also control how far I go. All right, so let's do it. Nice big running line, fill it in as far as it'll let me go, and it's usually right about there that it stops before it needs to get heated again, so it's definitely why I only do small chunks. Again, let me make sure that it rides up on the side, which it didn't that time. Maybe it's a little crooked, so I've got just a little bit of time to adjust and peel before it sets. Squish it nice and smooth, stretch it to make it flat. And there you go. I'm going to show you at the end how we reinforce this, but that side I'm going to say is good enough. And because this side's not really going to be pulling too much on that side when I glue it, I don't really need to let this side be cool before I start. So let me just spin this around so it's comfortable for me. And now I'm going to glue here to here. Actually, spinning around probably wasn't the right idea. Let's see if we can do it this way. Whatever works. At one point I thought that I was melting my tray with the hot glue gun, but I wasn't. I was just leaving remnants of hot glue, and those pick off pretty easily. All right, so I got my glue down. Again, I got to stretch it, make sure that it's evenly distributed and squished. You might get little wrinkles like this in the corner, and you can go back over it with a little bit more hot glue when we're done, so not a big deal. And you may notice I'm trying to stretch it down just a little bit towards the end because, again, I want to make sure that I've got enough fabric to kind of squish it against the edge. I really like it with a little bit of a lip of the fabric. All right, so that's 3 sides done. We're going to do one more side. And this side's kind of the trickiest one, only because you don't want to peel it too far back or you'll start peeling it up. And again, it's great that it's forgiving, and I just load in a little bit more glue at the corners and then do what I can to sort of fill it in. Ooh, that's extra messy. Let's put another glue stick in. Quick reload before I burn my fingers. Fill in a little more glue. This got a little bit high up on the side, so we're going to see how gross this looks. Okay, so I want to focus on the corners to start and then slide my mat down. Again, trying to make it nice and secure. This pushes the glue against the plastic and the glue into the fabric. All right, so now I've got kind of the first round done. If you have more fabric up along the sides than I do, and I'm going to use this corner as my experiment here. Sorry, there we go. You might have the ability to fold down a flap. So if you're doing that, then what I like to do as a last pass is I take my glue gun and I kind of just add a little bit of glue along the inside. So I kind of drag it through just to get that top layer done. And this time I actually got a little bit on my fabric, so I'm just going to try and wipe that to smooth it out a little bit. I don't like to have too much glue exposed. It doesn't look super good when you do that. There's just a little bit here. You can't really see it, it's clear, but it bothers me. So anyway, so that's how you can address any sort of weird wrinkles or loose flaps. You just add a little bit of glue, kind of like a second pass to secure the top. So the first pass we secured the bottom, and then if there's any bit of a loose fabric hanging, loose lip, you can kind of pull it back just a little bit to get your glue gun in there. And then I just run a little bit of glue along the edge until I'm confident that that top layer is also glued down. So this corner is also a little bit tall, so I'm just going to do the corner here. This is actually pretty short. Some of my other ones got a little bit longer. And yeah, that's about it. I don't even think that I'm going to do much more gluing than that. So just like that, I have a fun little bead mat. I'm just picking off some of the extra here. My bead mat is done. I'm ready to go for my next project, and if I grab my example one from before, I can take this and rest it on top, and it still fits even with the mat on it. You can see here I glued this down a little bit more. The walls were a little bit taller. So there you go. I hope this helps you get inspired to make your own bead mats. I have been a huge fan of these stacking ones, but whatever works for you. Again, have a great day with that. Happy beading, and I'll catch you all later.